Okay, so picture this. It's World War II. Manila's under siege. Food is scarce. People are starving.
Oh, wow.
And imagine their relief when some resourceful Filipinos find a way to smuggle in banana ketchup.
Mm.
That's right, banana ketchup. This unlikely condiment was actually just one of the many incredible innovations of Maria Orosa,
Oh, wow.
a Filipina food scientist who used her knowledge to fight for her country's independence in the lab, in the community,
Yeah.
and even on the battlefield. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into her fascinating life and legacy. And trust me, you'll never look at a banana the same way again.
I love that. You know what's so captivating about Maria Wairos' story is that it speaks to a universal experience, especially for those of us who can remember times of scarcity.
Right.
Making do with what you have, stretching ingredients, getting creative in the kitchen. These are all things that so many of us can relate to. But Maria Wairosa took it to a whole other level.
Yeah, it wasn't just about making do, was it? It was about reclaiming control,
Yeah.
like using food as a tool for empowerment.
Absolutely. You see, in the early 20th century, the Philippines was heavily influenced by American culture. And that included a push towards American food products, which created a dependence on imports that Maria Wairosa actively sought to break.
So she wasn't just a scientist, she was a revolutionary. She was fighting for food sovereignty.
Precisely. She wanted Filipinos to have control over their own food systems, to be able to nourish themselves with readily available, affordable, and culturally relevant ingredients.
Which is incredible, especially when you consider the turbulent times that she lived through. Born in 1893, right in the middle of the Philippine Revolution. She witnessed firsthand the struggle for independence against Spain.
And her family was right in the thick of it. Her father, a ship captain, actively supported the revolution. Can you imagine the dinner table conversations in that household? And later they moved to escape violence from American soldiers. It was a very chaotic and dangerous time.
You can't help but wonder how those early experiences shaped her. The resilience, the determination, the deep sense of patriotism. But let's talk about her journey to becoming a food scientist. I mean, she was a trailblazer, wasn't she?
Absolutely. She managed to earn multiple degrees in chemistry from the University of Washington. No small feat for a Filipino woman in the early 1900s. And from her letters, we get glimpses of the challenges that she faced. Financial hardship, the 1918 flu pandemic, worries about her family back home.
It's fascinating to think about what it must have been like for her so far from home, navigating a new culture, all while pursuing her education with such incredible determination.
Yeah, her letters really paint a picture of a young woman with a very strong will and a clear vision. She understood the power of knowledge, and she was determined to use it to make a difference.
And that's exactly what she did when she returned to the Philippines in 1922. She dedicated her career to combating food insecurity, promoting Filipino cuisine, and empowering communities.
And she did it all with incredible ingenuity and resourcefulness. Think about those clay pot ovens that she designed for people who didn't have access to electricity. I mean, that's using your brain power to address a real and pressing need.
Speaking of resourcefulness, she's probably best known for her banana ketchup. But I have a feeling that there's a lot more to that story than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. But before we delve into the world of banana ketchup, I think it's important to understand the broader context of her work. Remember, she was passionate about utilizing local ingredients, things that were often overlooked or considered waste products.
Right, like the rice bran she used to create those incredible cookies.
Exactly. She saw nutritional value where others saw trash. And those rice bran cookies were a game changer, especially in a time when beriberi, a disease caused by vitamin B1 deficiency, was a serious health concern in the Philippines.
It's like she was constantly finding ways to turn adversity into advantage. And she didn't just focus on nutrition, she also wanted to make these ingredients appealing and accessible to everyday Filipinos.
Yeah, she understood the importance of culture and taste. She knew that for people to embrace local ingredients, they needed to be incorporated into dishes that were familiar and delicious.
So she wasn't just a scientist. She was a culinary innovator and a champion of Filipino cuisine.
Precisely. And one of the ways she championed Filipino cuisine was by finding creative ways to adapt to the limitations of available ingredients.
Which brings us back to that banana ketchup.
Okay, let's talk banana ketchup. I have to admit, I'm intrigued. I mean, ketchup is supposed to be made with tomatoes, right? But I'm guessing that wasn't always the case.
You're absolutely right. The history of ketchup is actually quite fascinating. Early ketchups were made from all sorts of things: fermented fish, soybeans, mushrooms, you name it. The word ketchup itself actually comes from Asia, referring to a variety of savory sauces.
So tomato ketchup, as we know it today, is actually a relatively recent invention. Exactly. It was really in the late 19th century that tomato ketchup, thanks in large part to companies like Heinz, became the dominant form. But in the Philippines, tomatoes were an expensive import, and that's where Maria Y. Orosa's ingenuity shines through.
She saw an opportunity to create a ketchup, using a readily available and affordable ingredient: bananas.
Precisely. And not just any bananas. She used Saba bananas, which are starchier and have a more robust flavor than the Cavendish bananas that we typically find in supermarkets. They're a staple ingredient in Filipino cuisine.
I'm starting to see how her deep understanding of both food science and Filipino culinary traditions allowed her to create something truly unique and impactful.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about substituting one ingredient for another. She carefully crafted a recipe that captured the essence of ketchup, the sweetness, the tanginess, the versatility, using ingredients that were readily available to Filipinos.
So she wasn't just creating a substitute, she was creating something uniquely Filipino.
Exactly, and her banana ketchup wasn't just for wartime either. It became a beloved condiment, a staple in Filipino pantries. It's a testament to her vision that something born out of necessity could become such an integral part of Filipino culinary culture.
You know, you mentioned that many of us,
Mm-hmm.
especially those in that 45 to 60 age range, I remember times when we had to be resourceful in the kitchen, stretching ingredients, making do with what we had. But I imagine for Maria Y. Rosa, this wasn't just a matter of frugality. It was about national pride.
Oh, absolutely. It was about reclaiming Filipino cuisine, showcasing the incredible potential of local ingredients.
And speaking of local ingredients, I know that banana ketchup wasn't her only culinary innovation. She developed over 700 recipes. What else can you tell us about her work?
Well, one of her major focuses was finding ways to make nutritious food accessible to everyone. We've talked about the rice bran cookies, which were a huge success in combating beriberi, but she also did incredible work with other ingredients, like cassava coconuts, and even roselle.
Roselle. I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a type of hibiscus that produces a fruit with a tart flavor, similar to cranberries. And you know cranberries were a luxury in the Philippines. So Maria Y. Rosa saw roselle as a fantastic local alternative. She developed all sorts of recipes using it, from jams and jellies to wines and vinegars.
It's amazing how she was constantly finding ways to turn limitations into opportunities.
Yeah,
It sounds like she was always thinking, okay, what do we have here and how can we make the most of it?
that was her genius. And she wasn't content to just create these recipes and keep them to herself. She was passionate about sharing her knowledge, about empowering others to take control of their own food production.
Right. I read about the rural improvement clubs she established. Those sound like they were really impactful.
They were. These clubs played a crucial role in educating communities, particularly women, about food preservation techniques, nutrition, and home gardening.
So she wasn't just working in a lab. She was out in the community, really making a difference in people's lives.
Oh, absolutely. And her impact extended far beyond the Philippines. She even embarked on a global tour to study food preservation methods in other countries. She was constantly learning, adapting, and bringing those insights back to her homeland.
It sounds like she was a true visionary, always looking ahead, always searching for new ways to improve the lives of others. But of course, her story takes a dramatic turn with the outbreak of World War II.
It does, and this is where her resourcefulness and her deep understanding of food become absolutely critical.
Because under the Japanese occupation, food became a weapon, didn't it?
It did, especially in Manila, where the Japanese imposed a brutal siege, cutting off access to food and supplies. People were starving, and Maria Y. Rosa knew she had to do something.
And that's where we circle back to her famous magic food, soylac.
Exactly. Remember, this was a protein-rich powdered drink made from soybeans, something she had developed years earlier as a way to combat malnutrition. But during the war, soylac became a lifeline.
So she was literally saving lives with her knowledge of food science.
She was. She and her team of volunteers, often called the Orosa Girls, worked tirelessly to produce and distribute soylac, smuggling it into POW camps and other areas where people were desperately in need.
And this wasn't just a small-scale operation, was it?
No, it was a massive undertaking, involving incredible risk and ingenuity. They would often smuggle soylac in hollowed-out bamboo stalks, hiding it from the Japanese forces.
It's an incredible story of courage, compassion, and resourcefulness. It makes you wonder if she ever imagined that her work in the lab would one day be used to save lives on the front lines of a war.
It's remarkable, isn't it? And her work went beyond soylac. She developed other nutrient-rich foods that could be easily smuggled and distributed. Things like cookies and candies designed to provide essential vitamins and calories in a compact form.
She was like a one-woman resistance army. Fighting back with her knowledge of food, it really underscores the power of innovation, especially in times of crisis.
It does, and it makes her tragic death in 1945 during the Battle of Manila all the more heartbreaking. She dedicated her life to nourishing others, only to perish in a senseless act of violence.
It's a stark reminder of the human cost of war. But even in death, her legacy lives on, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Her recipes are still beloved in the Philippines. She's a national hero. And there's even a museum dedicated to her and her famous banana ketchup.
It's incredible to think about the lasting impact she's had, not just on Filipino cuisine, but on the very notion of food sovereignty and the power of food to bring people together, even in the darkest of times.
She's an inspiration, isn't she? She reminds us that even in the face of adversity, we can find ways to be resourceful, to be innovative, to use our knowledge to make a positive difference in the world.
I think that's a powerful message, especially for our listeners who might remember a time when things were a little simpler, when you had to make do with what you had. Maria Rosa's story shows us that those skills, those values, are still relevant today.
They are, and she reminds us that food isn't just about sustenance, it's about culture. It's about identity. It's about resilience.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of Maria Rosa. We hope you learned something new and maybe even felt inspired to try your hand at making some banana ketchup or exploring some of her other incredible recipes. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those innovative juices flowing. It's amazing to think that something as simple as a condiment could become like a symbol of resistance, of national pride. And her banana ketchup is still enjoyed today, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a staple in Filipino households.
Yeah.
And you can even find it in some specialty stores here in the U.S. But what's even more remarkable is that it's not just used as a condiment. It's actually a key ingredient in a number of Filipino dishes, like a unique take on spaghetti that uses banana ketchup in the sauce.
Banana ketchup spaghetti. Now that's something I'd love to try. It sounds like a real fusion of Filipino and Western influences. A testament to Maria Rosa's ability to adapt and innovate.
Exactly. And you know, many Filipinos who grew up during the war have fond memories of those banana ketchup dishes. It wasn't just about sustenance, it was about comfort, about a sense of normalcy in a time of extraordinary hardship.
Food has a way of doing that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Connecting us to our past, to our culture, to our loved ones. And in Maria Rosa's case, it was about connecting Filipinos to their homeland, to their heritage, to their fight for independence.
That's so true. And it's something that resonates even today as we grapple with issues like food security, climate change, and the globalization of food systems. Maria Rosa's story reminds us of the importance of local knowledge, of resourcefulness, of finding creative solutions to the challenges we face.
It's a reminder that we can all make a difference even in small ways. By supporting local farmers, by reducing food waste, by being mindful of where our food comes from and how it's produced.
Exactly. We can all channel a bit of that Maria Rosa spirit in our own kitchens, in our communities, in our daily lives.
Well, I know I'm feeling inspired. This deep dive into Maria Rosa's life has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's a story of resilience, of ingenuity, of unwavering dedication to a cause greater than oneself.
She was a true visionary, a pioneer and a national hero. And I think her story has a lot to teach us, not just about food, but about life, about the power of human ingenuity and compassion to overcome even the most daunting challenges.
So to all of you listening out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Maria Rosa, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be inspired to try your hand at making some banana ketchup, or explore Filipino cuisine, or simply find ways to be a little more resourceful and creative in your own lives. Thanks for joining us.